Sky-high bills that today soared further, and now the fear for millions. How long more can they cope? For Wayne, a single dad of 3, just treading water required superhero sacrifice.
Spider-Man, Hulk, Ant-Man, Iron Man, Iron Man.
2 Iron Man.
And that was before Ofgem almost doubled the energy price cap today.
Can you afford 2 extra grand a year?
No. Not without cutting a lot of stuff out.
Yeah, have you got much to actually cut out though?
No. I prioritised paying the bills, making sure they're all paid and making sure food's on the table for the children. I've even gone without food so I can make sure that they've got everything and all the bills are paid.
From October, the price suppliers can charge for an average household energy bill will rise from just under £2,000 to more than £3,500. That's because Ofgem has increased the maximum companies can charge for gas and electricity per hour. Gas more than doubling, electricity just under that. But while that typical bill is the headline figure, if you use more than average, your bill will be even higher than the energy cap.
For over 30 years, Gazprom has been a reliable gas supplier to the countries of Europe.
But not anymore. Russia has weaponized its gas while waging war in Ukraine, driving up already high energy prices across the globe. Back when Boris Johnson had the backing of his party, £37 billion of help for the cost of living crisis was agreed. Since then, while his support slumped, energy prices soared. More help is on its way, says both the current government and those that want to replace Mr. Johnson. But what no one can agree yet, when or how much.
Although there will be more announcements next month, more cash coming from September onwards, you shouldn't forget that the pipeline of cash stretches out throughout the autumn.
The most vulnerable households need that additional help, and I'm doing the work to make sure that that will be in place throughout next year.
My priority is to support the most vulnerable in our society and pensioners. That's why, on top of cutting VAT off energy bills for everybody, I would provide further direct financial assistance.
While Rishi Sunak talked energy to voters in Cambridgeshire today, his rival Liz Truss did not appear on camera. But writing in the Daily Mail, committed to cutting taxes and suspending green levies. Too little, too late, say Labour.
We need to have a freeze on those energy prices. Do not let them go up to those levels, and pay for that in part by a windfall tax on the oil and gas companies on those excess profits. Meanwhile, you've got a government that is missing in action, and I think most people looking in today would say that is unforgivable.
Back in Ipswich, Wayne says he needs to hear more from government now.
There is a lot of times I will wait until the children are in bed and I will sit there, I would have a little cry because I go through finances and everything else and I just don't know how I'm going to do it.
How common is Wayne's story?
Unfortunately, it's really common. 2 years ago, we would have worked with around 500 people. At the moment, we're working with well over 1,000 families a year. So it's doubled in a period of, say, 18 months.
Home Start provides support to families in need, but relies on volunteers who are now themselves also feeling the pinch.
We've got people that are in very different situations. So our volunteers have dropped in the terms of people going back into the workplace because they've needed to, taking on additional hours or caring responsibilities. So no, we haven't got enough volunteers.
So the cost of living is having an impact on your volunteers?
It really, really is. It really is. At a time when we need those volunteers more than ever before.
Climate critics have long called for the UK to speed up its transition to renewables, and today is a wake-up call. Analysts argue it's just not possible yet.
You need all of that power generation capacity available in case the wind doesn't blow. I mean, renewables are great, but they're also intermittent, and you need thermal power to back it up. And as Europe and the UK have shut down coal-fired power stations and nuclear-fired power stations, the only one left is gas. And so we're increasingly reliant upon gas-fired power to back up renewables. That's kind of why we've ended up in the situation that we're in.
Analysts now predict bills could rise further still, possibly £6,500 by April. This is a crisis where the causes are global, and this is a story right now with no good news on the horizon.
Well, earlier, Paul caught up with the Ofgem Chief Executive, Jonathan Brearley.
This is a heck of a kick in the teeth for everyone in the country, is there any glimmer of sunlight on the horizon?
Well, look, I talk to customers all the time, and I know that today's news is devastating for many, many families out there. What we've seen this year is the slow and deliberate shutdown of gas from Russia to Europe, and that is causing prices to spike far further. Now, if I were to give you an example, I look at the winter price for gas, it is now 15 times what you'd normally expect. Now, if that were to happen in petrol, that would mean it would cost between £400 to £500 to fill up our cars each time we went to the petrol pub.
Well, that sounds horrific. How much worse is it going to get?
Well, look, we don't make predictions, but we can see further pricing pressure in the market. And the difficult news I've got to say today is not only this price cap level of £3,549, but there'll be further pressure later on.
A lot of people at home worried about this winter are going to look at today's price cap rise and go, wait a second, this guy's on the side of the energy companies, not the energy consumers.
Well, look, the price cap was designed to do one thing, and that was to make sure that unfair profits aren't charged by those companies that buy and sell energy. Now, right now, those profits in that market are 0%. What it can't do is it can't say, given the cost of the energy, that we can force companies to get from customers less than it costs to buy the energy that they need. Because otherwise they simply can't buy the energy for those customers.
Just before Christmas, you're going to hike prices yet again because you've chosen to reconsider the price cap every 3 months now. That's a heck of a Christmas present for a lot of struggling families, isn't it?
Well, look what happened last year. And what we know from last year is that when companies fail, those costs come back to all of us. So over and above the price we pay, we'd be paying more to rebuy the energy for the customers that come from failed companies. So we have had to make some difficult trade-offs, and we have had to make some difficult choices. But ultimately...
It's difficult choices at the expense of consumers, though.
Well, it's difficult choices to make sure that consumers don't pay more. So if those companies fail, we'll have to come back to consumers next year and say, you're going to have to pay even more than you're paying right now. And given the forecast, which is showing pricing pressure, that doesn't seem like the right thing to do. But what we are saying is, given the changes, given the pace of the market that's changing, we need to make sure that all of us are working together. If companies were to fail, ultimately those costs do come back to customers, and that's not something that we want to see. So we've got a difficult balance to make, we've got a difficult balance to strike, but ultimately we need to work across the board now. This is a serious situation, and I look forward to working with the new ministerial team to make sure that all of us tackle it.
John Braley, the Chief Executive of Ofgem. Well, despite the impact of today's announcement affecting millions of people, Liz Truss's campaign hasn't made anyone available to answer our questions on how they plan to tackle the soaring energy prices. However, in a statement, they said that Ms Truss would take immediate action to put money into people's pockets by cutting taxes and suspending the green energy levies. But the specifics will have to wait until after the Conservative Party has finished selecting its new leader. We also reached out to the major energy companies, but none of them would come on our programme either. Well, earlier I did manage to speak to Emma Pinchbeck, the boss of Energy UK, the trade body that represents energy suppliers. I began by asking why the bills in the UK are so much higher than those in most other European countries.
So mainly it's due to two things. Firstly, the way our regulatory market is structured. So we have this price cap, which means that costs get passed through in chunks. The second thing is that we're very exposed to gas because we burn a lot of it, mainly for heating, but also for power. And so even though we don't import a lot of Russian gas, we buy that gas on the global market. And so it's very, very expensive. And that's what we're seeing in bills.
Gas price inflation here is, 214%, I read. In Germany, it's 44%. In Italy, it's 77%. In France, it's 8.2%. We're so much worse off than our European friends and neighbours.
In the UK, we are particularly exposed because 85% of people have a gas boiler and we use a lot of it for heating. That's quite hard to change our demand for. And secondly, we don't have gas storage, so we've been buying, when we need it at these prices.
I mean, I was really quite astonished to hear that we store something like 1% of our gas and the average in the EU is 25%. So should much more money have been spent by the gas companies on the infrastructure that allows us to store more gas?
That's certainly something that the government now thinks will help, and they're talking, I think, to industry about restarting that storage. In terms of the prices that we're seeing ourselves as customers, there's not much competition at the moment because basically the suppliers don't make very much margin in the UK, and the price cap means that they're literally pricing to the price of gas.
But Centrica, which owns British Gas, if I'm not mistaken, has made 1.2 billion quid in profits.
So in this energy crisis, the people who are obviously making profit are oil and gas producers. Now, I don't represent them, but if you're producing and selling gas at the moment, then you are making money on that. Centrica's supply business makes very small margins, and so does the sector as a whole.
This is all very interesting and it's providing a lot of context, but to the consumer, looking at comparisons, they're looking at France, where the price of a gas bill has gone up by 8.2%, because the state-owned gas company, energy company, EDF, has been told by the government to basically cap the price at that level. That's what people want to see here, something really dramatic that means they don't have to spend a third of their income on staying warm, that they don't have to choose between food and fuel, which is just outrageous in a country as wealthy as this one.
Yeah, to put today's prices into context with people, we think that for low-income households, it's about 10% of disposable income will go on your energy bill.
But do the French have a solution, Emma?
We think something.
Do the French have a solution?
Which is, they have done something, and we've recommended something similar to government here. We wrote to the Chancellor several weeks ago, which is to fix the price and then to basically loan the money to buy the gas at higher prices for the next 2 years so that prices to the consumer stay where they are.
And what did they say to that suggestion?
My understanding is that talks are ongoing in government and no idea is off the table. And we heard the Prime Minister today say that there would definitely be something in place when the Tory party leadership election is done. So that's next week. Let us hope that that happens because we think it's urgent and really critical we get something else.
Emma Pinchbeck, thank you very much indeed. Pat McFadden is Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. He joins me now. Thanks for coming on the programme, Pat McFadden. We heard earlier in Paul's piece, Keir Starmer has suggested, his plan is to freeze the energy cap at where it was in April. Is that still your plan? And is that still enough?
Yes, it is our plan. We think that the scale of the figures announced today by Ofgem and indeed what could come in the future demands a really big response from government. When I think about my constituents in Wolverhampton South East or many other people in similar circumstances around the country, they simply will not be able to afford the kind of increases announced today unless we get a big response from government. So we have put forward a proposal that the price be frozen at its current level, which is a cap of around just under £2,000 for the duration of the winter, rather than imposing not just the rise that we've had today, but possibly another huge one in January on consumers at the coldest months of the year.
Right, but we've already seen something like 30 energy companies, most of them smaller ones, go bust. If you do that, many more will go bust, won't they? Or the question is, will the cost of this eventually be passed on to the taxpayer?
Well, you have to pay for it, and we've set out how we would fund it, in part through an extension of the windfall tax on the oil and gas companies who are the part of the energy sector which is making the most money out of this huge spike in global prices, backdating that windfall tax to January when we first suggested it should be introduced, getting rid of the investment allowance that gives about a third of the proceeds of the windfall tax back to the very companies who are making the most out of it, and reallocating some of the government funding that's already been announced. Of course, this is an expensive response. It does cost money, but the human scale of what we are facing now demands a big response from government. They've been completely absent today from the scene. They've not been speaking on your programme or other broadcasters. We have put forward a proposal to help the country through the next 6 months.
But this is a short-term fix. What about the long-term fix? Should we rethink the whole energy industry in this country? Should we do what the French have done, which is to renationalise energy giants and basically tell them where they should keep the price?
we're going to have to take long-term action as well as helping people with prices in the immediate term.
But what is that long-term action going to look like?
What it would look like are two particular aspects. We're going to have to completely have a step change on insulating our homes. We've got 19 million homes in this country that don't meet the expected energy standard. We're going to have to invest much more in renewables and forms of energy that make us not rely on the global gas price. We're going to have to increase our resilience in the future. So alongside the immediate price pressure, of course there's got to be a long-term programme to mean we are more energy efficient in the future and less reliant on fossil fuels. Those things must come alongside the price help that we've been putting forward in recent weeks.
But what is your solution to the real problem at the heart of all of this, whether it's the energy companies or the water companies or indeed the rail companies? There is no genuine competition at the consumer's end.
This is not right now a competition problem. This is a global price problem. And whatever the ownership structure that you have of the companies, you'd still be faced with that global price problem. Now, right now, our choice would be to make every penny of help available to people to reduce their bills and not to go buying shares in companies. That's the correct priority at the moment when people are faced with the enormous price increases announced by Ofgem today.
OK, got to leave there. Pat McFadden, thanks very much. Fatima.
Thanks, Matt. Well, all this will leave millions of people forced to choose between food or fuel, even those considered comfortably off, but especially those already struggling. In Birmingham, 4 out of the 10 constituencies in the country with the highest rate of child poverty are in Birmingham. Simeon Brown has been there, hearing from some of the families affected.
Jodie Dunstan is close to a saint here on the Castle Vale estate, where the lights go on for now. As the cost of living spirals, Jodie provides second-hand school uniforms for as little as 50p to families who cannot afford the basics.
What other sizes was that family?
This morning, young mother Katie is the first to arrive. She's seen her energy bills double and is now bracing herself.
I've gone from £1.50 a day to £4 a day on average.
Is that a lot of money for you?
Yeah, because it used to cost me £50 for the month and now it's £120.
£120. And how have you found the extra money?
I haven't.
In the past, Katie has had her power cut off. It has just taken her 2 years to pay off that debt. And then she got today's energy news.
Thank you. Oh, I got an email this morning saying that it was going up again in October.
What was your reaction to that?
I don't know how I'm going to pay it. I'm struggling now to pay it, so for it to go up even more, I don't know how I'm going to pay it. If we get through the month until the next month, then I'm all right. As long as I'm not thinking about it, because if I think about it too much, I'll go insane.
Can you afford the £5? No, that's what we always ask. It's not just you, it's everybody.
Yeah,
yep.
Saved it just in case.
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Every item here is donated. And if a family cannot pay, Jodie says she never turns them away empty-handed. How often do you hear from families like that who say that they're struggling?
Every day. Because we've got our Facebook group. We have them message us constantly.
The rising cost of energy does not just impact the families who visit, but the cost of providing them with clothes too. How many uniforms have you washed over the course of running this centre?
Now you're asking, mate. I'm sorry, but look, if I had, at the start, I had, Jess, was it 600 or 900 and odd black bags of uniform we had at the start that we had to wash and sort? So you can imagine in...
900 bags of clothes?
Black bags. And boxes, yeah.
What do you expect to happen over the next few months, especially as energy bills continue to rise?
Demand's going to rise because it goes from summer uniform to winter uniform. So then people are going to need warmer clothing, so it's going to go higher.
Birmingham is home to 4 of the 10 constituencies with the highest levels of child poverty. In this city, 40% of them live in relative poverty. And nationwide, that will rise if the price of energy does. Everybody is impacted, from the young to the old. The birthday girl is Mo, 77 today, and celebrating with friends at this pensioners activity club.
It's priceless to them. This is for some of them, it's their only outing of the week.
Is there a concern that if prices keep on rising indefinitely, that this service gets put at risk?
Yeah, there's an absolute chance of that happening. I mean, immediately we won't allow that to happen, and we'll do everything we can. But long-term effect, the price is going up and reaching the 18%, then there is a threat of this club not being able to be used.
The cost of energy impacts the cost of almost everything else. The frustration here is that as the energy regulator announced a further increase to the price we will pay for energy, the government and the 2 candidates vying to lead it are yet to announce any major action. Do you have any faith in the current government and also the candidates trying to be the next Prime Minister?
I lost my faith a while ago because I'm not helping anybody really, and things are getting worse. No, not at the moment. I got no faith. I wouldn't even know who to vote for. Shame, isn't it? After all these years.
He spoke for the next Prime Minister. It's not helping, is it?
I'm more concerned about the young people in particular, with families, how they're going to manage. It's just crazy.
That's the question everyone is asking. As things stand, come winter, candles will be used as warmth rather than celebration. Everyone from charities to businesses to single families and pensioners stands on the brink. And those here describe the political response as let them eat cake.
Simeon Brown in Birmingham there. Well, we're joined now by 2 single parents worried about the impact of energy prices. Hazal Mahmut is holding down 3 jobs to make ends meet. And Lynn West, who we first met in April when she told us about how difficult it had become to top up her meter and how she'd had to cut back on her food shop because of energy bills. So Lynn, when we met in April, you were quite upset just thinking about the idea that prices could go up again.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today?
It's just a daily thought. I'm really panicking because I've done everything that I can to save money.
You'd cut your food shopping down, hadn't you, to about, what were you spending every week?
It was down to £45.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For your whole family. And,
yeah.
And you're looking to cut that down further?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hazal, you're working 3 jobs already. What's that like?
Yeah, so up until quite recently, I was working full-time in the lighting industry, Monday to Friday, 8 till 6, plus, when you need to do extra hours, you do. I was also doing Uber Eats deliveries to try and earn more money where I could, and cleaning houses at the weekends. And I'll be honest, it's exhausting, very, very exhausting. And it's something that I was able to stop doing recently. But with the announcement today and the surprise energy bill I had through my my letterbox a few days ago, it's something that I may well need to start doing again. And cutting down my food shop is something that I also had to do. I think it was back in April I managed to get it down to about £15 a week for myself and 2 kids. It's now at about £20 a week, even though what I buy has not changed. So just more costs.
Because the prices are just going up, aren't they?
Yeah, and similar to yourself, it is a bit of a panic. I don't want my children to grow up in, seeing the poverty that I did when I was younger. But they also need to understand and need to know that I'm doing everything I can, but they can't have everything.
So how do you both have these conversations with your kids? What do you say to them?
Oh, it's about being real with them, making them understand money. They have to come on the shopping trip with me, more so the little one now, because just doesn't understand. My older one does. It's not about can I have it now. It's can I have it for my birthday.
Yeah.
So it's. You're already planning a year ahead.
It must be a real strain, like constant stress.
Yeah, I would say it's heartbreaking, to be honest, because of course as parents we want to give our children absolutely everything. And my kids, Sophia and Zekai, are incredible. Mummy says hi, guys. They are brilliant, and they know when we go food shopping, they ask if they can have something, but know that sometimes we can have it, sometimes we can't. They've stopped asking for branded things. But when things were very, very difficult a few months back, my kids did get a bit worried. You know, they'd ask, oh, but how much money do you get from your job and X, Y, and Z? But it's not about how much money you get from your job. It's about rent costing £1,400. It's the number of times I'm having to fill up my car to make sure I'm getting them to school. It's food, it's energy, it's council tax. And I feel like as a society, or as humans within society, we are being hit from all different areas. And when do we get a break?
So the Chancellor today has said more help is on its way, but that the reality is that we should all look at our energy consumption. What do you think about that?
May I?
Yeah.
That makes me very cross. I actually spoke to Rishi Sunak on LBC's Question Time a few months ago to ask him what more can I be doing. My boiler is off. I wash my dishes with cold water. We're on a meter. My children don't have baths unless they're sharing the water. I don't put my heating on. You know, what else can I be doing? What more can I do? You know, my energy bill came through recently, and I know that I do so well at keeping our energy costs down because my electricity was £280 for the quarter, and a lot of people will hear that and think, oh, actually, no, that's quite good.
Yeah.
But when you consider that I was paying about £40 a month, we're talking in the space of a few months, despite me cutting my energy usage right down because it's the only thing that I can do to even feel like I have any form of control over what I'm spending. Despite that, I'm still paying more.
Yeah.
So for me, just the idea that we have to do more and we have to take accountability for our energy usage, it's rubbish.
What do you think, Lynn?
You know, I already close curtains in the winter. That, you know, there's curtains at the door. Like, and they're just like simple little things.
Do you think that politicians get that? We've seen Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss out campaigning to become Prime Minister. Do you think they understand the challenges that you've already been going through?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. As much as they may try to show that they identify with us, the reality is I'm panicking about an electricity bill that I've managed to pay half of, and Rishi Sunak has a new swimming pool. We are not the same. And I think Liz Truss is not even speaking about helping people directly.
Well, she said she will take action. We haven't had the detail of what that action is, but she has said she'll take action.
But
is that good enough?
No. We need help now. And there is nothing that could have or should have stopped even Boris Johnson from making some form of change that's going to help in this moment. Right now, what's happening is that people aren't eating. You know, people are trying to stretch out meals as much as possible. People are, doing everything they can. And thankfully, right now, in this moment, the cold cannot kill us.
Yeah.
In
But
winter,
however,
it is. Back in February, I didn't have my boiler on. I didn't have my heating on, and I could see my breath downstairs in my living room. So what else am I meant to be doing?
Hazal and Lynn, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your experiences with us. We're going to have to leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.